like I said, I am quite blown away about about how you and your mom, this story, and I really want to read it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm blown away because it's extremely, extremely rare. Yeah.
yeah.
Tell us the title of your book, Alina.
It's when life gives you lemons, squeeze them harder.
Nice. I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Um, when did you complete this book?
I actually completed it at the end of last year, just before Christmas,
Okay.
because I had to get it all printing. I had it all printed locally, so there was a deadline there to try and get that out because I was releasing on Australia Day, which is the 26th of January here.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about like what inspired you to write this book? The title sounds very enticing.
Well, there is a funny story to that because I was actually part of a business group,
Mm.
and the business coach in the UK strongly suggested to have a digital footprint as a
Ah,
way of,
yeah.
getting your place, your name out there. So he actually put together a group as part of the consignment to write a book. And I thought, we were part of like, say, 12 people. And I had no idea what I was going to write about. Everyone just assumed that I was going to write about health and fitness. And I thought,
Ah,
that's the last
okay.
thing I really want to do because I
Yeah.
feel like it's all been said before.
Yeah.
So I didn't really know what I was going to write about. And I was up against all these people. There was TEDx speakers, that have done that a couple of times. They were all very academic, had a lot to contribute, and also people that just really wanted to write a book.
Mm.
And I thought, wow, I've got no idea. Anyway, so I was stressing about that. And I thought, don't worry, it will come. And then one night on the lounge, I just sort of sat down and it was like something hit me on the head and the title came. And that was when life gives you lemon squeeze them harder. And I thought, oh my God, that's perfect. Because then I knew what I was going to write about. Because throughout all my career and just in my own general life, it's always been about mindset, about trying to
Mm.
turn challenges around. It doesn't mean that you dodge them. It makes it easier to try and cope with a really difficult situation. And so then I thought, great, I'm going to write about all my experiences just because there's been a lot in my coaching industry that, revolves around, the
Yeah.
mindset. So I started to share some of that. So that's what I started to write down.
Did you well, we've talked a little bit about this before, right? And you mentioned talking about your childhood as well, and it's in the book. So can you
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what you have written?
Well,
Not
we could be here for
everything.
a long time. Well, I think like a lot of families, I had I should say a lot. There's a lot that I've come across, right, that are very dysfunctional. But in a child's world, you don't know about this. It's just, it's not until that you're an adult looking back. And there's a lot more detail in my book, but there was a lot of mind games, and it wasn't a very good environment. And so I left home when I was 16 when I could.
Mm.
And thankfully I met someone at the time who really sort of, if it wasn't for that person, I really don't know where I would be today because, that instigated, a move away from home. And I just lived with a lady, kind of like a boarder. I didn't really know who she was. She was just a family friend of this other friend of mine who helped me
Okay.
go through the transition. And then so I left school and got a job and did all that. And I've often looked back thinking, had this person not come into my life, I would have stayed home, and I
Yeah.
don't really know how much more damage would have done. So,
Yeah.
and then growing up, I then realised that one of my sisters, really blamed me for deserting them because they were a
Oh,
lot
wow.
younger, and
Uh,
I never really realised that until much later. And I thought, God, it's amazing, like what they can take on. And
yeah.
because then they were subject to all the mental abuse and the emotional abuse and everything that I copped. I was the oldest. My mother did remarry when I was only young, and so she had the rest of my brothers and sisters. But
Okay.
yeah, I've always classed them as, as my siblings, but I never realized just how much they took on as a child, because with me growing up, I always had to set the example because I was the eldest. And if
Mm.
either, any of them pulled them, went out of line, I suffered the consequences.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway, that made me determined to become the parent that I am today,
Mm.
and have that connection with my own family, because I
Yeah.
didn't have a choice growing up. I only
Yeah.
had a choice of how I reacted to it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in the book, there are you talk about your own journey, right? And how
Yes.
mindset is important. So usually, when we talk about lemons, right? When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. But then you say squeeze it harder. So uh can you share a little bit about this part, where
Aha.
yeah, where things,
Definitely.
yeah,
Well, it's about not fearing the challenge.
mm,
It's about sort of acknowledge and step into it and go, hey, okay, I see you, bring it on, type of thing. I'm
yeah,
not scared of you. So
yeah,
it's like, well, I'm not going to be intimidated by, a challenge. It's just I'm really going to work a way. I find a way where I can manage whatever situation is going on to work through
mm,
it.
mm.
So I wasn't going to be making lemonade. I like to be different. It's like, bring it on.
Yeah,
Yeah. So, and
yeah,
then there's just not just about my life. I use my life as an example because there's so many different things. And I really open up, and I find that when I use myself as an example, it really reaches out to a lot of people, because I
yeah,
know that from my coaching, because I
yeah,
know that they've actually gone through a lot of those situations themselves. They're just
mm,
having someone else to relate to,
yeah,
made things so much more easier for them. And there was an understanding that they weren't the only person going through it all.
mm,
But I also use, other people and situations as an example as well. So, yeah, you have to read the book to find that out. It's not
mm.
just all about me.
Okay. So it's other people's stories, inspiring stories and things that they have done. So it could be any sort of challenges that they have gone through in life, and
Yeah,
then victorious, coming out of it.
definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
And
So
I think you don't have to experience the same set of circumstances,
yeah,
but it's
yeah,
applying the tools that when you find, yourself up against a challenge, because a lot of people are fearful of it.
mm,
And, it's, I hate things sticking over me all the time. I like to be able to find a way to get through, just so I can cope, so it doesn't affect me day to day. I try
yeah,
and cope as best as I can through the
yeah,
situation. And, it could be, anywhere from, sports to,
mm,
well, there's a whole there's a whole book there, in sports psychology. But just even, people might be fearful of trying something new for a change, because they're
mm,
fearful of not being good at it.
mm,
So there's lots of different situations. There's life examples through clients that I've met from cancer. There's clients
mm,
that I've, met through that have been molested. There's clients that I've met through that have been, through divorce or, childhood trauma. There's we've all got something, but we don't have to
yeah,
go through the same thing to apply the mindset.
yeah,
Um, and one of the biggest things I also talk about is how to restore yourself.
mm,
I talk through my love of nature and spending time in nature, and just, it could be the simple things. You don't have to go and spend a lot of money, doing anything to connect to nature. You just have to be.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sure so the book was launched in January, so I'm sure by now you would have gotten feedback from people who read the book. And what's the general consensus, from people? Like, did you receive notes or emails from people to say, how the book has really helped them, or,
Oh,
something?
definitely.
Yeah.
They actually, no word of a lie, started coming flooding in. It was so unexpected because I was so scared. Like that saying, when I talk about feel the fear and do it anyway, I did. But I was
Yeah.
like, okay, it's out there now. And I
Yeah.
thought, well, I've always said, because it came from a place of heart.
Yeah.
So then I do no wrong. It's how other people interpret. That's fine. I don't name anyone, of course, but, I
Yeah.
use myself as an example and through my experiences with the aim of helping other people. So connecting to them and just helping them, reassure them that they're not alone, that there's someone else out there that has gone through the same things or similar. And this is the tools that they use to help them. And hopefully through that, they were able to gain some insight. But there was a lot of good feedback. Like, it was amazing. And they were all basically women, our age. So that have gone through, lots of different things. And a lot of people love the vulnerability because it really felt that it spoke to them. And it wasn't a book, it wasn't a how-to book. It's not a journal. It's none of that. You can pick it up and read anywhere, really. But for me to start for where I wanted to start, I had to backpedal and talk about the foundations just to give the reader a little bit of an understanding of, okay, this is what I mean by coming, when I reacted to this situation. It didn't just happen.
Okay. So it's very relatable, right? For people when they pick up the book, especially if they feel like they're all alone and experiencing what they're experiencing. Reading your book will help them to see that, hey, I'm not alone, lots of people go through what I go through, and that so would you categorize it as a book of inspiration?
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of different categories, actually. There's definitely inspiration is one of them, and also, motivating.
Okay.
It can also fall under sports psychology as well, family situations, and then also, there's grief there as well. So it touches on lots and lots of different, categories, but.
So is it available on Kindle and ebook and physical book? How can people
So it's available it's on my website. That's the direct one. So for people living in Australia, it's on www.bodyshack.com.au. That's my actual business, and then you'll see that there's a link there for the book. I've also got mantra cards that are connected to the book as well, or you can buy them separately.
What cards? Can you say that again?
Mantra. Mantra. So to give you an idea, at the end of each, so a little bit of a story. I've got a saying for everything. And so I wrote down all my sayings, and I don't know, they just happen to be applicable in certain situations, right? So I started to write them down. There was about, 30 something of them, and some of them aren't mine. They're, or some of them I've just made up, or they're just a tool. So at the end of each chapter, I actually put together, like, there was a relatable quote, or a mantra, that was connected to whatever I was saying. So there's just over 20 chapters in the book, but I compiled all the mantras together and made mantra cards. I've actually got, that's the front cover of them, but each one of them have got like a different saying.
Oh, nice.
On them that's relatable, like, don't look back, you're not going that way.
Yeah.
And what doesn't break you makes you stronger. And the better you eat, the better you feel. The better you feel, the better you look. The better you look, the better you eat.
Yeah.
And then this was one of my favorite ones, actually, and I talk about this in the book. I don't quit when I'm tired. I stop when I'm done.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've got those there. And then so I like to actually do them directly, only because it's just the printing quality is different. So I've got a book here, and at the end of each chapter, as I said to you, there's a quote, and it's all done in a beautiful color.
Very nice.
And then on the inside, there's some information there as well. But and that's why I like to post them directly from my site. But you can get them from Amazon, so that's available as well. Just the Amazon doesn't have the inside print of the covers, and it doesn't have the coloured quote. That's all.
Okay.
So so that's available on Kindle and Amazon.
Okay. Yeah, Kindle we don't get it in color. It's just just
No,
type. Yeah.
no, and yeah, same as with the Amazon. And I haven't put the cards on Amazon. I didn't know how to do that.
Okay. Yeah. So, for people in Australia, they can easily get it from your website. People from
Mhm.
any other, parts of the world, they get it from your Amazon link. Okay, all the
Yeah,
links are below,
yeah.
right? And any, is there a second book?
Well, actually, I've got a publisher that wants to sign with me. I'm just waiting for the documents to come. It's been a little while, but apparently that's normal. And they what was I going to say about? I forgot. Yeah, about the second book, and they were actually really keen on me writing a second book. And I
Yeah.
said, yes, of course I am. So there is a
Excellent.
second book coming. It will be to do with the same type of theme because I
Yeah.
think that there's a lot of books out there that will give you strategies, and it's more of a workbook where
Yeah.
for me that I'm time poor, that the last thing I want to do is to be working and going through something again.
Mm,
I learn through other people and what they've done rather than sit there and do an exercise or
yeah.
at the moment I see a book like that, I tend to put it down because I just don't have the time. I just won't be able
Yeah.
to read something. So
Yeah.
it will be along the same lines as that of what I've done with the first. It'll just be an extension of it.
Okay. Okay. So when do you see that it'll be out a year from now?
Oh, well, I was hoping to start it way before now. I don't know. The thing is that I just need to start. That's the
Yeah.
thing. So we are all time poor. I realise that, but I've got less time now than what I did when I wrote this
Mm,
book.
yeah.
And I find that I'll just be getting my teeth into something, then I've got to stop.
Yeah.
So I've just got to allocate a certain time and then be strict with it. And then, yeah, it doesn't matter if it takes 6 months or I wrote this in 12 weeks, actually in 8 weeks, but then by the time it was edited, yeah. So, and
Wow.
that certainly was not planned. It just happened. So it was the actual wording was 8 weeks and then all the editing and everything
Yeah.
came after.
Yeah. Oh, wow. 8 weeks. Very fast.
Well,
Very,
I
very
think it's
fast.
when it comes from here.
Yeah.
And the hardest part, like I said, was the editing because there's no once upon a time the end. It was, a lot of repetition.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And I'm
true.
sure there was a lot of automatic writing because I'd be, just typing and the words just, my fingers, I'm a pretty quick typer, but my fingers couldn't keep up with my words that were coming through.
Yeah.
And particularly when you're on a roll. And then
Yeah.
when, the next night would come, the same thing would happen, but I don't realize that I've already repeated myself a little bit, so
Yeah.
there was a lot of double up in that way.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I guess in writing, the important thing is to be able to just get it out there. And then, the editing is where you arrange everything and then, take out all the repeats. And um, I think the important thing is to allow the writer to bleed, right? There is a quote, or there's a saying by Ernest Hemingway where he says writing is like bleeding, for writers, to just
Mm.
you just need to get it out there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because I even, say at the end about, I opened up about how vulnerable I was and how I even questioned myself. I went through that,
Mm.
imposter syndrome, thinking,
Yeah.
who am I to say, and I actually had to apply my own mindset strategies to just get me through that bit. And I thought, I can't
Yeah.
believe this. I became really angry at one point
Yeah.
because I thought, who am I to say I'm not a writer? It's not like this was a wish of mine or anything like that. Who's to say what I say on, down on black and white, is the right way? Like there's plenty of other people that are going through worse situations. So it
Yeah.
wasn't about how bad it was. It was about this is a challenge. What did I do to help fix it? And that
Yeah.
was when I kept bringing it back to what the intent was, then it was fine. But I definitely had imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I thought, oh, well, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Get it
Excellent.
out. Yeah.
Excellent. And I think for books that are motivational, inspiring books, we often think that, oh, someone else has written that already, or that has been done already. But I feel for such books, it's very important to hear from different perspectives.
Yeah.
And as a writer, whether you are sharing your own story or you are interviewing someone else or of someone else's inspiring story and writing it from your perspective, gives other people an opportunity to also see it from your point of view, right? And your experience, which makes it, um, relatable. Like sometimes when we think that, oh, this guy is a motivational speaker and only he can write good books, but not necessarily so, because sometimes someone like that will get so busy that they have ghostwriters. They don't even write their own stuff. you know,
Yeah.
so it doesn't come from, it's different, right? It's not from yeah, it's just different. So it's yeah, it's important to know that, all of us
Yeah.
deserve to share from our heart,
Yeah.
what our experiences were like and how we can inspire other people, because each of us will reach out to a different segment of the world's population.
Definitely. And I think that, I really admire the people that don't gloss over, situations. And, um, I find a lot of inspiration from other people who have, I suppose we do read about the celebrities, but I've always found an interest of when they shared their own stories,
Mm,
of childhood and what they did and what they went through. And I thought
yeah,
it's always been a bit of a draw card for me because, I think that it was so relatable for my own situation. And the only reason I share that is because, I had two choices. Now I could have let that whole situation completely overpower me and
yeah,
I'd be a completely different person to I am today, which,
yeah,
I remember my aunt said to me at, 17, about how proud she was of me and she couldn't understand, my mother. And she said, Leni, have you, of all people, we would expect you to be on drugs, selling your body, being yourself, being out on the street.
yeah,
And she said, your mum's got rocks in her head. And, if my daughter was half the person that that you've grown into, I would be so proud. So she was
wow,
really kind of letting me know that, as a bystander, like they could only do sort of so much.
yeah,
And, even though I had a different relationship with my mother, she really made me known, and really understand that how proud,
yeah,
the rest of the family were, that I
yeah,
could have ended up, in
yeah,
one particular, spot in my life, but, I
yeah,
didn't.
wow,
So yeah,
wow,
it was definitely life changing. So that's why I think I use my own experience saying not how hard I had it, but this was a situation and yeah, I could have easily gone this way, but this is what I did to help, grow through that. But then it just didn't stop then. Obviously, life continues.
yeah,
And I didn't know I would be a coach later either.
yeah,
So it
yeah,
just keeps evolving. Yeah.
yeah. How
Yeah.
old were you when you became a coach?
It was actually when I was divorced, when I went through a divorce. So I was 37, 38,
Okay, okay,
37. Yeah, just on, finished at 37.
okay. So everyone, it's never too late to start a second career.
No, definitely
Never too
not,
late.
at all. I didn't think that I would, I would be good enough. I know it's funny, isn't it, when you look back,
Yeah.
and you just think, I think we all have those things. No one talks about it.
No
And,
one, yeah.
I remember, having a baby for the first time, we're all made to feel that we should cope because we're women. And I
Yeah.
remember, and I know I've shared these stories before, but, we're in a mother's group. And I remember looking to the next mother and just saying, do you do this? She goes, no. And I thought, thank God. I feel better because if you're up against someone who gets everything done and
Yeah.
everything's perfect, you can't help but feel like a failure if you feel that
Yeah.
that's supposed to be the normal precedent, like you're a first
Yeah.
time mum.
Yeah. Yeah. The pressure is real, right? The
Yeah,
pressure
yeah.
when we look
And
around
it
us.
felt so good that
Mm.
someone else was going through the same things. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I feel normal now. And I'll never
Yeah.
forget that feeling. And I come across that in a lot of situations. And, you know, and I think by sharing my own sort of stories as depending on the person, you know, what they're going through, I'll share mine to help open up that doorway, you know, to let them
Mm.
know that they're not alone, that they're speaking to someone who understands. And
Mm.
then they ended up sharing their stories with me, that things that they've never spoken a word to
Yeah.
anyone, you
Yeah.
know, and I feel so grateful that they're able to feel, you know, comfortable and they trust me, because I would never repeat anything that's been said, you
Yeah.
know, in
Yeah.
confidence. But I'm just amazed that there's some stories there that their husbands don't know, you know, or family, not one, they've not mentioned it to anybody.
Wow.
So, but the fact
That's
that they've released, it's been amazing.
it's a heavy burden to carry,
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
especially when it comes to like mental, emotional stuff, right? And it's yeah, to carry it with you like, you know, for most of your life and not sharing it with anyone, it's very heavy. And it gets heavier, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
when it's
And
not shared. Yeah.
oh, definitely. And, you know, I also talk about, you know, when you're going through like different situations, for instance, and different challenges that keep repeating themselves all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would
Yeah.
say, okay, I'm clearly not getting a message here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's what makes me more determined to surrender. Not so much surrender, be more open to, look, how am I going to get through this? Because I don't want to keep this, you know, sticking around for too long.
Mm. Mm.
So,
Yeah.
and as I got a little bit older, like my mother was, you know, became quite a bit of an influence at one there for, you know, for a point there. And she used to talk about, actually, I didn't actually write this in the book, it's just come to me now, but she used to talk about, she became quite, after 40, she became quite spiritual. And it was like, you know, this mother came into our life that all of a sudden we didn't even know who she was. She was like a completely different person. It was like she was completely born again. And we went, oh my
Wow.
God, who is this person? Like, wow, this is my mother. And she was very, she was studying lots of different things at the time, and she loved philosophy and things like that. And, you know, she was a big guidance in my early days of my divorce. And, you know, she was always there at 2 a.m. or any of those, you know, early mornings where everyone likes to think. And all the gremlins come
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she used to just help me apply the like different lessons and about learning the experience. And she always used to say to me, the greater that your reaction to something, the stronger the lesson.
Yeah.
And she said, if it was irrelevant, it wouldn't matter to you.
Mm.
And so I used to use that as a gauge. And so
Mm.
obviously, you know, families and those sorts of situations, like, well, where else, what greater experience to learn from?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you have to stick around and endure the
Yeah.
torture.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
you know, I would say, right, okay, I've got this lesson now. Can we move on?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she would say, every now and then, Lean, there'll be a test. It will show up in a different form just to see if you've got the, you know, if you've learned the lesson. And
Mm.
yeah, and she was right. There was a lot of situations that, like, you know, that came about like that. And yeah, she was quite influential for about 4 or 5 years in that way.
Wow, that's a complete transformation
Yeah.
on her part, like, and being a positive influence, like coming full circle in a way,
Mm.
uh, you know, like helping you through this difficult time.
Yeah, and I do talk a little bit about the book about my mother's own upbringing and where she
Yeah.
was at, and I had to let a lot of that go because I couldn't keep holding that against her all the
Yeah.
time, and it was about 3 years before she passed that I actually developed a really, really good, strong connection with her, and
Okay.
yeah, it was beautiful. I'm glad I had those 3 years. So yeah, but
Yeah.
it took a lot of fear from me because whenever I opened myself up, there was some sort of repercussion.
Mm.
And so that vulnerability I didn't really show because of past experiences.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I just decided to put one foot through the door one day and then just trust.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was really glad that I had that time.
Wow. That's that's very rare.
I
I
know.
would say it's really rare because usually when we have toxic relationships with our parents, especially, and usually the for the parent to change or for either party to change for that matter, it takes a lot, right? And usually they go separate ways and they don't really reconcile. And even if they reconcile, it's just, just superficial. There's no deep connection, and that's really rare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she did. She was with my stepfather that I never liked, and he passed away from cancer. And it
Mm.
was just after that that I don't know, she just had this real spiritual awakening. All of a sudden, she had these
Wow.
friends around her, and my brother and sisters and I would talk about, oh my God, who is this person? We go, oh, we like her. And because we didn't know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
she apologized to us. And
Wow.
for, she said that, as growing up, us kids were always last, and she put the men in her life first. And she
Yeah.
realized that, and she apologized. She said, I know it's too late, but I'm really sorry. I should have put you kids first.
Okay.
And that is
Wow.
in my book, because that's a huge, big acknowledgement, to
Yeah.
do that. But when you understand where she was coming from, not intentionally, it
Yeah.
just helps you understand the bigger picture of things. And,
Yeah.
you can let something like that eat away at you like a disease, or you can acknowledge it and find a way to try and make it so
Yeah.
it was a part of your life, but it doesn't
Yeah.
control your life.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it, That's a really good way to put it. Often people feel like uh, like someone has done something wrong to them and then they forgive them. But the problem is they forgive them, then they sweep everything under the carpet and just, okay, I put it behind me, it's done. But then if you don't address what is still going on, right? I mean, what if there's still resentment and you're not addressing it and you're just pretending to be nice to this person? So the inner work is so important, right? So if you do the inner work, then there is true reconciliation, or else it's really hard to get that connection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I
Yeah.
think that's why I think with writing the book, it was really important to me just to keep it on basic terms. Don't pretend that to be someone that I'm not,
Yeah.
speak the
Yeah.
language I would normally speak to clients, or
Yeah.
friends. And because then your normal self. And I think that, I used to come across, many situations and they'll just go, you got to learn to forgive, because once you forgive, you move on. And like there were some horrific moments
Mm.
in my childhood, which I do talk about. And it wasn't just, oh, okay, I forgive, move on.
Yeah.
It was like learning to face the uglies for myself.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
done in a time where it just rolls out very slowly. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like it will show itself if you want to work through it,
Yeah.
or you can just put it away.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want it to control me anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where sometimes I find with some people, I know how confused I was about, oh, learn to forgive and forget. And it's like, no, but you've still got all this,
Yeah.
residue left inside. And
Yeah.
yeah, you can't. You might not
Yeah.
talk about it. It's still
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. It definitely needs to be addressed, right? Because forgiveness is one thing, and then the inner work is a different thing, because um I mean, we have to be pragmatic about it. I mean, when damage is done, right? And the damage needs to be addressed
Mm,
and
yeah.
to be repaired. But I think this story with your mom is a really beautiful one, you know.
Oh, thank you. It's
Yeah,
there's some situations like I still say, like I don't forgive because it was wrong, but I'm
yeah,
not letting it rule me. So it's
yeah,
not forgive and forget. I have
yeah,
an understanding of,
yeah,
and it's not just my mum, there's other family members,
yeah.
in my life as well. But it's learning how I can live with certain things to move past it
Mm,
and not let it linger. But yeah, my mother
mm,
was a huge influence, and
wow.
you can't undo the past, but you can certainly have a say in what your future looks like.
Mm, definitely. So our listeners do get hold of this book. The links are below, I'm gonna get my copy on Kindle for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
Yeah. And I'm, like I said, I'm quite blown away about, about how you and your mom, this story, and I really want to read it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm blown away because it's extremely, extremely rare. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I actually don't in that part. Like I said, I actually didn't write about that in my book. It was just something that just came to me that I remembered then. Like it's
Ah,
not. Like I said, it's not once upon a time the end. I
yeah,
do talk about the forgiveness with my mum and our
yeah,
relationship.
yeah,
I didn't talk about so much about her spiritual
yeah,
awakening
yeah,
as such. But yeah, she was definitely a different person.
yeah. That's her
We all liked
journey.
her.
Yeah. So would you write that in the second book?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not that I didn't intend to. It's just something that,
Yeah.
like, I mean,
You,
there's only so many things you can write that will come to
yeah.
you. Obviously, it was not meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe everyone has a little bit of a snippet now before it comes out.
Yes. Yes. We look
Yeah.
forward to the second book now. Wow.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think, and it's interesting. Yesterday I had to go to the shops. I don't really like shopping. I used to love it when I was younger, but we're at the shops and we're just having something to eat and in the courtyard. And I love watching people and observing. And anyway, the comment was made, with my partner, like, wow, there's a lot of dysfunctional families here at the moment, and it was an observation. And we're just talking about just general. And I said, yeah, well, I mean, look at my own upbringing. And I said, but now, like, look at all the different dynamics. And that's what we were talking about. And it was
Yeah.
just from this family that we were looking
Yeah.
at observing anyway. And, it was really interesting because I thought, wow. And then I'd been doing my family tree a little bit, on the side. And then I thought, God, imagine that family tree. It's just so colourful and very confusing in the future for someone to try and trace
Yeah.
back. And I think
Yeah.
that, I mean, define the word dysfunctional, there really isn't a word. People are just doing the best that they can. It's my
Yeah.
observation, looking on.
Yeah.
But, I look at it and I just think that there's a lot of pressure with people nowadays and for lots of different reasons. And, I think that most people are just trying to do the best that they can.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
with the knowledge that they have at the time. And if someone can help them or, connect with them to help through them that pathway, whether it be
Yeah.
through speaking to someone or reading a book, whatever the case, as long as they can get that help and that little bit of guidance. And I think that, that they're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That's
like what you
amazing.
say about the term dysfunctional. I think if you think about it, all families are dysfunctional.
Yeah, what's perfect.
Right?
I mean,
There's
that's right.
something there's something wrong somewhere, right?
Yeah, that's right. And
Yeah.
there was always something. It's just your definition and your interpretation of something. And,
Yeah.
that's, I actually, when I was doing my book and my partner said, look up dysfunctional families. And I thought, okay. And there was actually this whole, there was all these different categories,
Mm,
right? And the
mm,
word dysfunction. And then when it came to myself, I was the one that didn't have a voice, that a
mm,
people pleaser, because I
mm.
knew that if I spoke up, it could create
Yeah.
a lot of repercussions that I didn't really
Yeah.
need.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
better to not say anything and keep the
Yeah.
peace.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Coping
a bit like the black
mechanisms, right?
sheep in a way. Pardon?
Yeah. Coping mechanisms. We learn
Yeah.
how to survive.
Yes.
It's survival emotionally, mentally,
Yes.
and unfortunately, when we grow up, we get out of the family, and if we don't see that, then we're gonna repeat the same thing, right?
Yes,
Until
yes.
something
And, I
shifts.
actually had a real eye opener. This is to show my age now, but do you remember when John Gray had one of his book was Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus? And I remember reading that was about 22, I think.
Oh
22.
wow.
I was engaged at 23. And I remember reading through it. I'm going, oh my God, I am my mother all over. Even down to the type of soap that she used, I used that too, because that's what my mother used, and I never was aware of it, that I was becoming like an identical, image of with characters of my mother.
Yeah.
And, my mother, if something went wrong, she would be in a bad mood all day. It was set. And I found I was following the same footsteps. And I didn't know any different. And I remember my, he was then my husband to be. I think it was our first argument that we had, and just over something little. And then I was ready, set, to be in this, sour mood. And then we finished doing something. He goes, "Oh, would you like a cup of tea?" And I went, "What?" And he said, "Well, would you like a cup of tea?" I'm thinking, hang on, I'm supposed to still be angry at this. And he's gone, "Just forget about it, move on."
Yeah. Like, what? We're friends now?
And it was interesting because I didn't know any other way.
Yeah.
Because you become conditioned. So you stay in that conditioning until a different environment comes your way. And that's when I realized how much I was like my mother. And I went, okay, this has got to change.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. We repeat, it's like, this is categorized as generational, ancestral stuff, right? Generational stuff, generational programming that we just repeat, that's because that's the only way we know how. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it's certainly, I think a lot of families go through a lot of things.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's good to be able to identify and talk about it rather than just pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's not healthy, for your own mental state. Somewhere along the line, you've got to have a happy balance within yourself. It doesn't matter about people around you. All that matters is yourself and how you cope with things. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, everyone. Do get the book.
Yes, get the book. It's life-changing.
Yeah, it's life-changing. Get the motivation, the inspiration from Alina's book. The links are all below. And just remember, if you are elsewhere in the world other than Australia, you get it from Amazon. But if they want to get the physical book from you, they can, right? From your website.
Definitely. Definitely.
They just have to keep in mind the shipping costs and all of that. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, and we will see all of you again. This is Shamla from Singapore signing out.
Thank you, Shamala. That was great to talk to everyone. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And this is Alina from Australia.